Thank you very much. Sorry for the delay. My name is Ollie Cushing. I'm founder of RightsDD. We empower companies to respect human rights. It seems like every week there's a new headline about a company doing bad, and that normally means a company is involved in a human rights abuse, directly or indirectly. And you've got to ask yourself, why is it so hard for companies to do the right thing, to respect human rights? I started my career as a business journalist, and I've interviewed hundreds of business leaders around the world, and I know they aim to be generally good people. The reason companies typically become involved in human rights abuses is because they lack the systems to identify and manage them, both in their own operations and in those of their business partners. And I say that based on some experience. After I left journalism, I joined a human rights consultancy where I set up a subsidiary which audited armed private security companies, not an industry known for its friendliness and passion for human rights. But I saw in the industry a radical change driven by the adoption of human rights risk management systems. These systems are largely analog in the private security sector, but they essentially help companies assess their risks, manage risks that exist, and then report to investors, to civil society, and increasingly under new regulations. We at RightsDD seek to digitize and partially automate this process. Indeed, our vision is larger than that. We are seeking to build a platform where whole industries can collaborate to identify their risks and manage them, and collaborate with their supply chains. That opens up the potential to help companies safeguard the rights of millions of workers and community members around the world. Now, by this stage, some of you might be thinking, do companies really care about human rights? Is Ollie on a little fancy land here? Is there a business, an opportunity for RightsDD? Over the last 3 years, the global regulatory regime has changed rapidly. We've seen new laws coming out in the States, in the UK, and across the EU, which compel companies to report on their human rights performance and their underlying management systems. This is a huge new market which just didn't exist a couple of years ago, and it's growing. We estimate by the end of next year, 45,000 companies will be required to report annually on their human rights impacts. The sticks for doing so, for doing properly, vary, but there's often criminal liability associated with directors falsely reporting and large fines, particularly in the American context. And that is the driver which is opening a market for RightsDD. So our vision is large, and so is our opportunity. But we have to start somewhere. Over the last 6 months, we've conducted user research, going out interviewing sustainability leads across a range of industries, from banking through to retail. And we've identified an opportunity, or a need rather, for an initial product. That product is a modern slavery risk mapping tool. So modern slavery is a human rights abuse. It's important when we talk about human rights to kind of think of them actually what they are, rather than take them out of the abstract. And modern slavery is shockingly prevalent, and indeed it's increasingly common. There's 40 million people held in slavery or slave-like conditions around the world. And slavery is a business. People are held there to make money. And it is common in commercial supply chains. And so that's what we're hoping to tackle in the first instance. Our product is relatively simple. It's a combination of a questionnaire, which are simple, easy to understand questions, which can be deployed across a company's operations, so country managers, factory managers, and can also be deployed into the supply chain. We pull that data together and present it to our client in the form of a dashboard, which provides easy to understand key performance indicators. In other words, the data that you have to report on under this new legislation. So, how can you help? And hopefully you would like to help. We're looking for investors who have a passion for human rights. And we're also looking to continue our engagement with companies. It's actually very hard to speak to large companies, and especially when you're talking about something as private as human rights. So if you know people who are sustainability leads at large companies, or involved in compliance or legal at smaller or medium-sized companies, we'd love to speak to them. Please do introduce me to them. Any questions? I'll be at my stand. It's at the back, but we've got chocolates. Thank you very much.